Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Math Circles Online. My name is Roy, and I'm here to share another activity with all of you. So, today's activity involves us moving around and trying to figure out where we're supposed to be standing inside a grid line surface. And the topic that we are exploring today is called transformations. And what are transformations? A transformation helps us describe the movement of an object when it is moving on a particular surface. And for our activity, we're just going to be looking at three specific transformations. So now the question is, where do we see transformations happening? Well, matter of fact, we see transformations happening in nature. We see it happening in art. We see it even in video games. And those are not the only places you'll ever see it. You actually see it all around the world, and you even do transformations in your everyday life. So before we start the activity, I just wanted to show you the grid line surface that I made with my brothers. So line A represents the numbers from left to right, 0 to 9, and line B represents the numbers from bottom to top, 0 to 14. And you don't necessarily have to do this exact grid line surface. You can make your own design. For instance, this person did their grid line surface outside, use tape, and perhaps use chalk to write the numbers. This person did it inside, used a carpet and used tape as well, and numbered a couple note cards. Another person used tile patterns inside their house. Another person just used instead of using tape like the other examples, they use the tile patterns as well and just use everyday objects that they have inside their house. And so the activity materials that we used was tape, scissors, a ruler in order to make straight lines and make the squares that we were trying to make for the grid line surface. You also need available space in your house. You don't want to have a small grid line surface that you can't walk around, and perhaps you'll need markers or pen or chalk pen, whatever you have available. Okay, we're going to start with translation transformations, and I want you guys to think about what kind of objects you can slide around your house and what direction or directions these objects can be slid around your house. Okay. And a translation transformation can be understood as the sliding movement that a dot or object can have on a grid line surface. And here's an example that you guys can see. So to practice how we can use translation transformations, let us do the first practice problem on table
We're standing
1.
at 6 comma 3. That's our initial position, and we're gonna slide 5 units forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now our new position is 6 comma 8.
Okay, so now that we've done the first practice problem from data table 1, go ahead and finish filling out the rest of the data table. And here's a question on translation transformations that you guys can try and figure out what the answer is. Okay, so go ahead and give yourself a couple minutes to figure that out. So now let's move on to reflection transformations. Okay, guys? And before we start the activity, let us do a thought experiment that you can do at home. Okay, so give yourself a couple minutes to do this experiment and then come back to the activity. All right, guys? So here's an example of a reflection transformation, okay? This person is standing right in front of the mirror, and she can see a mirror image of herself. If she was also carrying a rectangle with her, the rectangle will also be on the mirror because it's portraying a mirror image of the object. Okay, so a reflection transformation can be interpreted as the mirror image transformation. Okay, something to also note is that right here on point B on this triangle, it's like one square away. It's one square away from this vertical red line. Okay, and this other B that is facing in the same direction, that the other B, we can see that this B is also one square away from the red line. So you can say that depending on how far you are from the mirror, that's how far your mirror image will also be. Okay, so some things that I want to point out is, let's say this red line that we see is line A, and this green line that we see is line B. And during the time that I will be showing you how to figure out and how to use reflection transformations, I'm going to reference line B as the y-axis line and line A as the x-axis line. Okay, guys? So to practice reflection transformation, let's figure out what the answer is for the first
So
row.
now we are standing at 5, comma 3. That's our initial position, and we're gonna be reflecting on the x-axis. And the x-axis is this red line that you can see on the grid line. So it takes us about 1, 2, 3, 4 steps to make it to the x-axis, and that means that our mirror reflection has to be 4 units away from the x-axis as well. So let's walk another 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so now that we figured out the first practice problem on data table number 2, take a couple minutes to fill out the rest of the data table. All right, guys. So here's the question on reflection transformations, and this is pretty much like a challenge question. So take a couple minutes and figure out what the answer would be for this problem. All right, so moving on, we're going to be combining our understanding on translation transformations with reflection transformations now. And to start off with, let's figure out the first practice problem from data table number 3. All right, so now that we figured out the first practice problem on data table number 2, take a couple minutes to fill out the rest of the data table. All right, guys. So here's the question on reflection transformations, and this is pretty much like a challenge question. So take a couple minutes and figure out what the answer would be for this problem. All right, so moving on, we're going to be combining our understanding on translation transformations with reflection transformations now. And to start off with, let's figure out the first practice problem from data
Okay,
table.
everyone. So now that we have practiced how to do translation transformations and reflection transformations, let's put these ideas together and let's solve the following practice problem. So it's asking us to it's asking us to slide 1 unit to the left, and we are at 3, comma 3. That's our initial position. So we're gonna do 1 step to the left, and that takes us to 2, comma 3. And then the next transformation that we have to do is reflect on the y-axis, and the y-axis is this green line that you can see on the grid line, and it takes me about 1, 2, 3 steps to reach the y-axis. So that means our reflection also has to be 3 units away from the y-axis. So let's see where that takes us. 1, 2, and 3. So now my new final position is 8, comma 3.
Okay, so now that we figured out what the answers are for the first practice problem from data table number 3, take your time or take a couple more minutes to finish off filling out this data table. And to finish off our activity, let's do a quick debrief, all right? So first question, where have you seen translation transformations or reflection transformations in the real world? And can you think of any other possible transformations that we can use in addition to the translation and reflection transformations that we saw today? All right, so that concludes our activity. Thank you for joining me and have a wonderful day.